Howdy, Shasta College. How y'all doing? Here we are. 2 more weeks of school. That is it. Get your assignments in. I'm going to stick the due dates up for the journal tonight, so you can hand those in at the end of this week when you can. Upload them. For the next 3 or 4 lectures, I'm going to be specifically honing in on some influential directors that are working now or have worked and have made a huge um, contributing to the efforts of art cinema, popular cinema, art, action cinema. Um, Person I'm talking about tonight is Chinese filmmaker John Woo, who is made his claim to fame in Hong Kong in the 80s and 90s with films like Hard Boiled, A Better Tomorrow, The Killer, a lot of them starring the same actor, Wu John Fat, who was his go-to guy in his films. And these films were eye-opening and a revolution in the action that they depicted, usually about the criminal underworld in Hong Kong. Quentin Tarantino wouldn't have a career without John Woo. He has mimicked and copied John Woo from Reservoir Dogs to Pulp Fiction, Kill Bill. If you look at John Woo films, then go back and look at Tarantino, you'll see him literally almost copying scenes right out of the John Woo's films. Tarantino has always been a sponge for popular pulp cinema, going back to the 60s and 70s with what they call grindhouse films, kung fu films, black exploitation films, and we'll be talking about Quentin Tarantino the next lecture. He needs a whole lecture to himself. But today it's John Woo. John Woo was born in China, and yet his influences are all American. Not a lot of Chinese filmmakers, folks. And his films he loved Hollywood films, Westerns. He loved the music of Bob Dylan, very Western influenced. Sam Peckinpah is a huge influence on him, especially his films The Wild Bunch, the slow motion ballet of violence was directly influenced by Sam Peckinpah. But Wu was also influenced by the French New Wave and their seemingly break away from the norms cinema, Hollywood cinema, into more of a free spirited, free form cinema that didn't that broke all the rules because they didn't have the money or their studios or the financing, and so they had to do it a different way. That inspired Wu to make his own films the way he can make them, and not be too influenced by Hollywood. His favorite films, um, Lawrence of Arabia, uh, is one of them. It's one of my favorite films. One of my top 5. If you haven't seen it, I hope you do one day. Anyway, so then after a couple of these successful films, they were playing here in this country, and they're making money. And what is Hollywood like? They like a successful director and someone with experience, someone who knows how to direct a movie that makes money. And so they brought him over to America. And I was disappointed when he came over because usually um, Hollywood has a tendency to water down the filmmaker. There's a lot of filmmakers who won't come here to work One of them, one of my favorite, um, Almodovar, Pedro Almodovar from Spain. He's been offered many Hollywood films, but he says they're going to take my freedom away. They're not going to let me make the film I need to make. They Hollywood will love you, and yet they want to control you. And if they can't control you, they'll just overpay you. So that's another thing that entices filmmakers throughout the universe to come to Hollywood because they have the big paycheck. So Wu was making more money in Hollywood than he ever made in Hong Kong. And by the time he came into Hong Kong, the England had left Hong Kong and now was communist Hong Kong. Things got tighter there, more censorship, more rules and regulations to follow the Communist Party, which he wasn't happy with. And so he made some films in Hollywood. His most famous ones would probably be Broken Arrow, about a nuclear somebody kidnapping a nuclear bomb. John Travolta's in that. Then he did another one called Face Off with Nicolas Cage, and and Travolta, where they actually changed faces, and that's why it's called Face Off. Clever action film, very American, with a lot of John Woo touches, but still it was watered down compared to his Hong Kong films. And then he actually got a huge paycheck when he made Mission Impossible Part Two with um, Tom Cruise. And even though Tom Cruise keeps an iron grip on all the creativeness that comes out of those movies, he understood and respected John Woo, and Woo said he got along well with Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise could be a handful. He wants it his way, or it's the highway for you, but he's getting a big paycheck. But he also respected Woo's artistic vision. And it's probably one of the better Mission Impossibles. I haven't seen them all, but I've seen that one. And I wanted to see it because John Woo directed it. And then he got kind of tired of what they were offering him in Hollywood. They didn't have this freedom of expression that he enjoyed in Hong Kong. And so, folks, he moved back to China, and he made a couple of films there. And then, but because of the constraints, the artistic constraints of the Communist Party, he has now made his way back to Hollywood. He's got an office down here in Santa Monica, and he's working on a new film coming out this year. It's called Silent Night. I don't know anything about it, but it's going to be a John Woo film. That's always exciting. No, he can't. In an interview I saw yesterday in the New York Times, he cannot compete with the Marvel comics. He's 77 years old. He's too old for that stuff. But he's not too old to do a really deep dive into thrilling filmmaking on his with his vision. And if Hollywood is smart, they would let him do what he needs to do. But Hollywood's not that smart. They like to control things to make sure it comes out the way they want it to. And they aren't filmmakers. They're bankers and lawyers and money men. It, Hollywood killed the careers of many artistic visionaries like Orson Welles. Could never work within the Hollywood constraints. Sam Peckinpah, it killed him early. He died at 57 years old. Had a heart attack. Cocaine, yes, had a lot to do with it. But like they say in the documentary about the making of the Wild Bunch, if Hollywood is smart, they let Peckinpah, they give him the money, they send him off to Mexico for 6 months and let him alone. He'll come back with a masterpiece. And he did it several times. When they try to control him, like he did his last couple of movies, the Osterman Weekend, the dreadful Convoy, he was not in his element. He had a couple good shots later on in his career, Peckinpah did, by going to Europe and doing Straw Dogs and Cross of Iron. They respected him there more than they did in Hollywood. But by then he was drinking so much and doing so much coke, it was kind of he was definitely not operating on all cylinders. But John Woo's not that character, but John Woo's very influenced, as well he should be, with Peckinpah, especially with the slow motion that Peckinpah perfected. He didn't start it, but he perfected it. And John Woo, it's a beautiful thing watching his slow motion in violent scenes, but he's stopped all that now because he felt it was getting cliche. So we'll be curious what he does next. The younger audience don't care about slow motion. They want everything as fast as they could possibly be. Just look at your Marvel comic. It's going so fast you can't even see what they're doing. I just recently watched like Batman Part 5 or something. The action is so fast, buildings are blowing up, collapsing. Evidently, nobody gets killed in these things, and you can't see what's going on. It's all computer generated imagery, which is cheating, folks. Um, we don't. We're not. We're humans. We move at a human scale. But in Marvel comics, they're all superheroes, and they're moving super fast. But they're also hiding a lot in that super fast action. They're hiding the soul of who we are as humans. We're not cartoons. We're not generated in a computer. We're not AI, although they're going to probably turn this into AI. But we're not that. And a filmmaker like John Woo has got a ton of character, ton of creative ideas, and he's out there. And as long as he's making films, it's a healthy film industry. I look forward to his new film. I hope you guys check him out. I'll post a couple samples of his work. Um, I'll post a couple of the Hong Kong films and some previews to his other ones. Maybe you've seen those other ones. Hope you have. Hope you search them out. A lot of you, I know, are looking for inspiration in your films, and John Woo is definitely inspiring. And the next time I talk to you, we're going to talk about Quentin Tarantino. He deserves a whole lecture to himself, of course. And we'll move on from there. Oh, yeah, I'm going to open up the reflection today. So that'll be due at the end of this week. You guys could get it in starting this week until the end of school. And just to give you a heads up, um, I've got like 10 days to do final grades, and I'm slow. Although I'm pretty much caught up on your grading right now, except for uh, your last two, but you just turn those in. So um, have patience on the final grades, and hope you guys are all planning a healthy Christmas. The weather's getting kind of cold. We might get a little snow, maybe up in the mountains at least. Spend a time with your families. Hope your Thanksgiving was thankful. And I will see you next time with the story of film continues.